This is Tony Diaz with The Other Side, and this is Mano a Mano. We are following the fiery debates between outgoing, soon-to-be ex-Senator Lion Ted Cruz and his opponent, Beto O'Rourke, who will soon be elected to the Senate based on how I'm seeing the debates going so far. And, of course, Mano a Mano, you get to see a left progressive Chicano. I'm Tony Diaz, Libre Traficante, joined by a conservative Mexican-American, Jacob Monti. How are you, Jacob?
Good to see you, Tony.
I'm going to be really nice to you in person because Ted is sinking quick, okay? So
wait a minute. He agreed to these debates to give Beto a chance and to give Texans a chance to see who the two candidates are. I mean, that's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of courage. Senator Cruz is going to be fine. Well, I wish he had a better position on immigration. I wish he would adopt a fix for DACA. His position on immigration needs to be improved, but he's still going to win, Tony. Democrats don't have enough registered voters. There's enthusiasm, but a lot of this money for Beto's coming from California, from Seattle. Those guys can't vote. Ted Cruz is going to win convincingly in November.
And that's pretty much, I'm sure, what Republicans are saying to themselves throughout Texas. I'm going to give you that because it's about to get ugly. Because Ted Cruz himself, he came up with this list. And this is the second debate. It's scheduled for September 14th in McAllen, and it's on immigration. I have to look closely at this to make sure this is correct. But obviously, since Ted Cruz was born in Canada, and he's not Hispanic.
He is Hispanic, Tony.
He didn't know that September 14th is the night before Hispanic Heritage Month. And he's walking into the Valley, and Rio Grande Valley, which votes Democrat all the time. And he's having a discussion on immigration. First of all, let's start with this. He's benefited from a broken immigration system. So here's a Canadian guy who basically bent immigration laws to qualify for asylum because his parents were Cuban Americans. And I'll bet you, too, if we look deep into this, Jacob, he probably benefited from affirmative action, too. So here's what really bugs me. Before we even get to immigration, because it's all tied in, he benefited from claiming Hispanic way back when, and then now he's turning his back on Hispanics. I think he needs to tell us if he's proud to be Hispanic or not. I think he's not. And I hear people like you. You just said that he's Hispanic. I've never heard Ted Cruz say, I'm proud to be Hispanic.
I've heard him say that repeatedly, and I've known Ted for almost 20 years.
Show me the news clip, but go on. I haven't seen the news clip.
He is Hispanic. His dad's Hispanic. Yes, he was born in Canada, but he was born to U.S. citizen parents. Come on. By the way, this is coming from Beto, who wanted these debates to be in Spanish. I mean, come on.
Well, one of them does speak Spanish, Beto. The other one does not. And now, of course...
If anything, that proves that Ted Cruz is really almost Chicano, because Chicanos, we don't speak Spanish perfectly. In my book, that makes Ted Cruz Chicano.
Yo hablo español muy bien. No, Ted Cruz is not Chicano. And by the way, for people who are watching at home and you're getting confused, it's pretty simple. A Chicano knows a history and would never vote for Ted Cruz, okay? And a Hispanic might, because they're confused. But even before we settle that, because only one person can settle that, is Ted Cruz. So we've already taken his Latino card away. So he's got to come back to reclaim it, okay? We got to see if that'll happen. But on top of it, he's benefited from a broken immigration system. And I really resent, this is a little personal for me, because I resent that he's turned his back on the Dreamers. And when Congress could have sat down to talk about this, he was the only senator to vote against us talking about it. That's pretty bad in my book.
On immigration, the senator's position needs to come around to that of most Americans. We need a DACA fix. His policies need to change. I can't really defend where he's at now on immigration, but let's look beyond immigration, because that's not the only thing Latinos care about, Tony. I mean, me, for example, I agree with a lot of what Ted Cruz says, maybe 80, 75%. On immigration, we differ, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to support him. He's still my candidate. He's still very qualified. He's done a great job, and he is Latino. He may not be your idea of what a Latino is, but you know, you are the libero traficante, but you don't get to decide who's Latino and who's not.
No, not at all. Of course, I want Ted Cruz to tell us if he's proud to be Hispanic or not. Because I've heard
That's
other
easy.
people. I've heard other people defend him and say, "Oh, he is Hispanic." Again, I've never heard him say that. I'll bet you he claimed it for affirmative action when he was younger. And on top of it, he's asking for it. He asked for this debate in the Rio Grande Valle, El RGV, the day before Hispanic Heritage Month. This is probably the last Hispanic Heritage Month. If you vote for Ted Cruz, he will end Hispanic Heritage Month.
No,
I'm
he
pretty
won't
sure
do
of that. On top of it too, it is about immigration because that's the topic. So I'm not saying that's the only issue for our communities at all. But Teddy Cruz lying, unless he lied. Because he is the president called him lying Ted Cruz, so he could be a liar. You know, I know Ted Cruz, he is known as a liar. If you support Donald Trump, you probably still think he's a liar because that's the name your president gave him. But lying Ted Cruz picked this topic on immigration, and I haven't heard lying Ted Cruz defend separating families. I haven't heard him say that he wants to get the families together. And here's my thing: I want Ted Cruz to hear this loud. I hope Beto goes for the jugular. And I'm going to throw it to you after this to give you time to respond. But I want you to know that our first world problems are such that anybody watching right now, if you went on an airplane trip and the airplane misplaced your luggage, you'd flip. You'd go nuts. You'd demand the luggage. These families lost their kids. It's disgusting that Ted Cruz doesn't do anything about it. What's he going to say about that? That's disgusting.
Well, look, on the separation of kids, Ted Cruz did speak out. It was one of the early Republicans to speak out and tell the president that the policy was wrong. So I think he deserves credit for that. His policy on DACA needs to change. He needs to support a DACA fix. He also needs to support legalization of the non-criminal aliens that are in the U.S. And most of the people here in the U.S., they crossed the border. That's the only crime they committed. Ted Cruz needs to understand that. But again, Latinos care about other issues besides immigration. I think it shows courage that he is agreeing to this debate and this topic. Let's see how they perform. But this is the only area where I think there's a little bit of vulnerability for Ted Cruz. This is the only area where I don't agree with him on. But let's see what happens. Again, we got to give the points to the guapo Beto, very good looking. But let's see how how he can hold his own with Ted Cruz, who is a very good advocate.
Okay, if Beto Camp is watching, and I'll give you a call too, don't let him off the hook. See how kind of things ebbed and flowed? We kind of took it to a common ground. Don't let him off the hook, okay? Because the only thing I've heard Ted Cruz say is that families shouldn't break the law. Before you let him get away with that myth, I want you to go there, Beto. I need you to tell him that these families are escaping from situations that we had a hand in. I want you to remind Ted Cruz that we funded the School of the Americas that destabilized Central American countries. When I first came to Texas, when I first came to Houston, I was translating into English the political asylum pleas by Guatemalans and El Salvadorans whose plight could not be recognized because the U.S. had funded secret wars. That was Ronald Reagan's legacy, and he pretended to forget about it. Don't forget about it. So don't let him off the hook. On top of it, too, don't let lying Ted Cruz get away with saying that it is policy, they shouldn't have broken law. We should not destabilize those governments. And on top of it, too, those people are running because they're in danger, because we have drug addicts in this country who will buy illicit drugs and send money into the hands of cartels across the country to keep their addiction going, and they're complicating place across the border.
Tony, 2 quick points. 2 of the big countries that are sending refugees to America right now are Venezuela, which thousands of people are here leaving that leftist regime. I mean, come on, it's not just right-wing governments that are causing oppression. It's also the left-wing governments of Venezuela and Nicaragua. So things aren't great in Venezuela. Communism doesn't work. Socialism it doesn't work tampoco. It's not as simple as left or right, because certainly the left hasn't given any good answers for Venezuela. People are eating out of the garbage cans. Come on.
Beto, I got a quick answer for you. Beto, bring this up at the debate. Simple. September 11th. First September 11th was in Chile when the left-leaning elected president of Chile was overthrown in a coup by the terrible dictator Pinochet, who was fueled by American dollars and might. And don't forget this too. Remember this, Beto, go for the jugular. You remind Ted Cruz that we trained Osama bin Laden because we wanted him to destabilize and he got out of hand. We did the same thing in Central South America. I think, you know what? Hey, in the Valley, gente, show up, protest, be loud, make sure that Ted Cruz knows that he's unloved, register voters. Ted Cruz's time is over. I'm going to give you the last word. You know why? Because your boy's going to lose bad, especially talking about immigration. I don't know what he was thinking. Está loco. Ted Cruz, lying Ted Cruz, está loco también.
Ted Cruz is going to obviously win the election. He needs to come around and come up with a more sensible, compassionate immigration plan. I have faith that he will. He is proud to be Hispanic. He always has been. Again, this is not a newfound identity for him. He is Hispanic, and he's going to do well with Hispanics as well. That's my prediction. He's going to at least get 35, 40% of the vote.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've crossed over to the other side.